Babysitting choice sparked family outrage as I refused to watch my sister's uncontrollable child, prompting her disrespectful scene at my door. I'm a 23-year-old child-free woman, if this is needed for the story, and my sister is 30 with a 4-year-old son. She's a single mom, ex-husband is not in the picture and has no contact with her or the kid. I'm gonna get straight to the point, that kid is a nightmare to be around. It's not his fault, it's my sister's fault. He very clearly has behavioral and mental health disorders, even at his young age. However, my sister was and is very ableist and refuses to accept that her son has problems. The kid screams bloody murder whenever something doesn't slightly go his way, screams and cries when he's overwhelmed, has meltdowns to certain sounds and textures. Like I said, I don't blame the kid for these issues, but my sister refusing to get him treatment or help makes the kid a nightmare to be around. So, as a result, I don't babysit the kid when my sister asks, more like demands, I do so. This causes a lot of fights between us and our family. I have a friend, 23M, who's married to a wonderful lady age 22 and they have a baby boy together who just turned 1. Yes, they got married and had him young, but it's not my place to judge them. This past weekend they asked me to babysit for them, and I agreed for a few reasons. Their kid is calm, well-behaved, and a general good kid/toddler/baby to be around. I love babysitting him. Also, they asked me nicely and understood that I might say no because I'm child-free. They were polite about their request. A thing about me is that if you ask me to do something politely, even if it's something I wouldn't usually agree to, I'd probably do it because you were nice and polite. So for these reasons, I happily agreed to babysit the boy. My sister also asked me to babysit her son that day so she could have a day to herself, and I refused and told her I was already babysitting for my friends. She was pissed, to say the least. She said a few comments about how I was an ass and not a good sister, but I thought she dropped it after that. This past weekend, while I was watching the baby, my sister started banging on my door. I looked through the window and saw that she had her kid in a care bag with her, and I knew she was trying to drop him off and make me babysit. She was banging on the door, yelling at me and calling me heartless and a baby hater, while I was holding a baby, ironic, and that I better open up and do my sisterly duties. I put the baby in a different room to keep him from getting scared by the noise, and told my sister through the window to leave, or I would call the cops. She started cursing for a solid 5 minutes before she finally left. I had the whole thing on my doorbell camera and sent it to the family group chat. Surprisingly, my whole family is on my sister's side. She keeps arguing with me about how I'd rather babysit a kid not even related to me over my nephew. I reminded her that her kid is a nightmare to be around, but she keeps saying that for family you help out. My sister has been cold since, and keeps sending me text messages to provoke me into arguing with her more. She's also started saying some pretty ableist and nasty things towards my friend's wife. My friend's wife is on the spectrum and has BPD, and my sister keeps saying that she should have been sterilized and never should have passed her issues to her kid, BTW. Her kid has shown none of the signs that autistic infants usually show, so what my sister is on. I will admit that I do feel a bit guilty because I never consider babysitting my nephew, but I jumped at the opportunity to babysit my friend's kid. My sister, dad, 66, mom, 64, and brother, 33, are all calling me an asshole and saying that I'm just using the CF label to avoid family responsibility. I need advice on how to get my family to see my perspective on this. How can I explain to them that the issue isn't the idea of babysitting, but it's the behavior of the kid? Update 1. So, shit has hit the fan. My original post was about 3 days ago, and ever since that post my sister's behavior escalated. I tried to talk to her about getting help for my nephew, and she kept screaming at me every time I brought it up. She said a lot of derogatory terms towards people with mental illnesses and mental disabilities, terms I won't repeat here. That wasn't the only escalation. She was at my door several times a day starting 2 days ago, the day after I made my original post. Banging on my door, screaming, crying, cursing, the works. She brought my nephew each time and he always looked so confused and defeated. He was too tired to react or melt down like he normally does around loud noises, and it broke my heart to see that on my doorbell camera. I wasn't at my house. I was crashing with my friend and his wife. I took the advice of a commenter who said to put some physical distance between me and my sister. They said I was free to stay as long as I wanted, as long as I helped out with some house chores and childcare while I stayed, which I thought was more than fair. So I'm staying in their guest room currently. I'm still with them, even though my sister isn't much of a problem. Many will be glad to know that my sister won't have parental rights over my nephew soon. She dropped him off at a safe haven site in the middle of the night. Totally a fun phone call to wake up to at 2 in the morning, and my nephew is currently with my parents. Social services placed him with my parents, and he's set to have mandatory therapy. In my state, don't know if it's different in others, if a child is abandoned in any way, safe haven or not, a physical and mental health exam is done. Other than being a little bit underweight, my nephew was physically healthy. He wasn't being physically abused like a few people were worried. But it was obvious he needed mental health, so he'll be starting therapy sessions soon, as mandated by a caseworker. We are not looking for my sister. After she dropped her son off, she left. She had quit her job a few weeks back, sold her car, and even her house a few weeks ago and had been renting a place, so this was planned. In my personal opinion, she planned to abandon her son the day I was babysitting my friend's baby, which is why she had such a nuclear reaction. She did leave a note, saying she can't do it anymore, she met someone, and that she doesn't want to be a mom to my nephew anymore. In her note she said she deserves a normal kid, and not a burden like my nephew. I seriously hope that my sister doesn't have any more kids with this mystery person she's referencing, but it seems like she's running off to start a new life and family. She still has 30 days to reclaim rights over my nephew, but it doesn't look like she'll do that. Time will tell. Like I said, I'm still with my friends because I was worried my sister would do something. My parents and brother have also been blowing up my phone and coming to my house, switching between apologies and blaming me for this. They think that maybe if I babysat that day, she wouldn't have done this, but I think she wanted me to babysit so she could do this. I'm not mad at them for blaming me. I understand that my sister is still their family and they're rightfully in shock and want someone to blame. They're human, and I know humans can be cruel sometimes while going through shock and grief. So, yeah, that's life right now. I'm currently sitting on the couch with my friend's baby while my friend is at work and his wife does a quick grocery run. She was going to take the baby, but I insisted on watching him so she didn't have to hassle with the car seat in the very stormy weather we have in our area right now. This update is all over the place. I feel like I'm rambling. There's still a lot of unknown stuff regarding my sister and nephew, but for now this is the update. Update 2. My sister abandoned her 5-year-old son a little less than 2 weeks ago and fled. Police are looking for her, but she hasn't been found yet. My nephew is with my parents and is in therapy. When that first happened, my parents were quick to blame me because I had refused to babysit the kid in the past and the weekend before my sister ultimately abandoned him. They think had I babysat him that day, she wouldn't have fled. I've been staying with my friends since then. And, oh my god, it's chill here. They're young parents with a baby, and yet it's chill here. Everyone is happy, they talk things out when there are issues, they work together. I've met both parents of my friends, and they're nice and polite. Obviously I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but I have seen some bickering and they always find a way to resolve it. Growing up, my parents always argued a lot, my siblings were always loud and cruel to each other at times, and there always had to be someone to blame. If you were the person who was blamed, you were insulted and shunned for a while, then they would apologize. You were always expected to forgive and forget. My parents are trying to apologize to me about their blowout at me regarding my sister, and I can understand their initial feelings. I'm willing to forgive, but I know my family will also expect me to forget, but I can't forget. I don't think I can forget this whole situation. So I'm wondering if I would be the asshole if I chose to forgive them, but refuse to forget this whole thing? Update 3. I'm about done with this whole BS and ready to just completely cut contact with my family after this whole mess. My sister got arrested a few months ago on several charges, including child endangerment/abandonment and drug charges. She's been court ordered to go to an inpatient rehab, but our state doesn't pay for it, which means that she has to pay for it. She does not have a job, and has little/no savings after burning through them on some drug bender. I work remotely and have a pretty decent income for my field and area. My parents are saying that I need to pitch in and help pay for the rehab, because they and my brother and his wife are also paying a portion, and if I contribute then they won't need to pay as much because it will be split 5 ways instead of 4. Here's where I think I am definitely the asshole. I asked my parents for the exact amount they want me to contribute. It was a fairly decent amount, I could afford it, but I was feeling petty after everything with my sister. My best friend recently had her second baby, yay, and I decided to take the exact amount my parents requested from me and spent it on getting my friend some extra baby supplies, toys, decorations, clothes, and a few early Mother's Day gifts. When my mom texted me and asked for the money, I sent a picture of my shopping spree for my friend and said I had already spent the money on a proper mom. She called me an asshole and said I could have just said no and not give them hope I would pay. So, Reddit, am I the asshole? I think I am, but I feel justified. Edit, title might be confusing. I told them I had the money, then after they got their hopes up I said I didn't have it anymore because I spent it on someone else. Update 4. Well, let's just say things went from messy to I could write a true crime podcast script level in the past couple months. I know my last update was me gleefully telling my mom where her rehab money went, still not sorry about that, but it turns out I might have seriously underestimated just how persistent my family could be. Or how quickly quiet can turn into chaos. First, my parents. They apparently drafted my brother into their get op to pay for rehab scheme, and he's been blowing my phone up nonstop, calls, texts, emails, even LinkedIn messages that somehow are more awkward than the rest. I blocked, muted, ignored, until he started showing up at my friend's place, where I'm still staying, because why move out from somewhere calm and beautiful when your own place is either being staked out by your parents or full of residual stress energy. My friend, a very intimidating 6 feet 3 inches ex-cook who can fillet a chicken with 2 fingers and a glare, told my brother that, if he dropped by again, the only thing he'd be getting was cooking tips he wouldn't like. That helped. Meanwhile, my sister, still in the state's version of rehab purgatory. But then, plot twist, her new man reaches out to my family on Facebook Messenger, of all things. We had assumed this mystery guy was just a figment of my sister's spiral, but nope, he's real, and he's a walking red flag parade. He came complete with love-bombing DMs, to my mom? A high-res profile pic featuring himself in mirrored sunglasses and an airbrushed muscle tee, and a sob story about how much my sister needs her family's forgiveness, emotional support, and financial generosity to get through this dark time. The kicker, he also demanded my parents send him $100 for bus money. They did not, but my mom did write him a 600-word reply about healthy boundaries, which he then tried to screenshot and post on his Instagram stories. The internet is wild. Oh, but that's not all. My nephew, now in full-blown therapy and living with my parents, has started to find his voice. He's getting better, which is such a massive relief I almost cried the first time my mom texted to say he'd made it through a grocery store without one meltdown. He's even started asking for me, not his mom, not my brother, me. My mom went through some first-class Olympic-level mental gymnastics to explain why the selfish sister shouldn't see him, but then my nephew flat out asked if he could call me. Cue emotional ambush FaceTime, during which he told me about his new dinosaur pajamas and the snack chart his therapist made him, and, I kid you not, asked if he could visit my friend's house to meet the baby that makes you happy. The amount of pride and despair I felt at the same time? Off the charts. Now, for the wildest twist yet, about 2 weeks ago, I got a letter, actual snail mail, with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of notebook paper in my sister's scratchy handwriting. Thanking me, for being better at this family thing than she could ever be. She wrote that she knew I'd never want to talk to her again, but she did want me to know she was planning to let my nephew stay with my parents, and she would sign whatever needed to be signed because he deserves a soft place to land. I still don't know what to do with that. There was $27 cash in the envelope. I owed you for last Christmas, she wrote in a postscript. So, here's where I'm at right now. My sister is limping along in court-ordered rehab, mostly broke and for once showing a sliver of insight. Her boyfriend probably isn't going to be on Dr. Phil, but he might end up on Judge Judy. My parents are slowly admitting that, hey, maybe this situation was bigger than Op won't babysit. My brother's still in that stage where everything is my fault, but harmless. And my nephew? He went to his third therapy appointment without my mom having to bribe him, and all he wanted to tell me was about his Dino pajamas and his new calm-down box filled with fidget toys. Plus, my friend's wife sent me flowers after I told her I was feeling twitchy and guilty. They left a card addressed to the babysitter who makes chaos less scary. Turns out, chosen family feels more like family than shared DNA can, sometimes. I'm not sure what comes next. Part of me wants to go home and try and fix what's left, and part of me wants to keep building this calm, happy life on the outskirts with people who understand what boundaries are. All I know is, my nephew's birthday is coming up, and he asked if I'd come, for just a little while, with some dinosaur stickers. Update 5 First big change, I finally went to visit my parents' place for my nephew's birthday. It was the first time I set foot back in that house since, well, the world exploded. It felt surreal, like nostalgia and anxiety did a dance in my stomach. But my nephew was so happy to see me. He's taller, chatty, and brought out this battered homemade volcano science kit to show me that he and my mom built. His hug almost deactivated my emotional immune system. The birthday party was low-key, by my family's standards, no screaming, no which aunt will have a meltdown betting pool, no passive-aggressive sheet cake messages. I genuinely wish you all could have seen it. A handful of his new therapy friends, a couple of cousins, one professionally hired dinosaur puppeteer, that my mom overpaid for, but whatever, the kid smiled for a straight hour, and, wait for it, a surprise Zoom guest. My sister, from rehab. Apparently, her therapist recommended she participate in the party in some way for closure, hers and my nephew's. So she called in, wearing that I regret a lot but can't say it face she's so good at, and sang him a, pretty in tune, actually, happy birthday. There was an awkward 30 seconds when my parents tried to do the fix family on camera thing, but my sister stuck to the plan, said she was proud of him, said she hoped he had a fantastic year, and then excused herself, before the call could turn to so when are you coming back? Afterwards, my nephew showed everyone the Dino stickers I brought. Yes, I nearly wiped out on tears at a dinosaur-themed birthday. Now, on to the second bombshell. The man, aka my sister's boyfriend, managed a cameo via FaceTime. Swear on all that is holy, he was dialed in from the break room of his new job. My mom checked, it's real. He apologized, yeah, you read that right. Profusely, he admitted to riding my sister's chaos train longer than he should have, said he wanted no part in whatever family money saga was going on, and then bizarrely gave parenting tips about positive affirmations for kids with trauma. Jury's out on sincerity, but dad refrained from throwing the phone, so weird progress all around. But it gets better, my brother. After months of carefully cultivated crankiness and ignoring me unless it was about money or guilt, he pulled me aside as things wound down. He's not a talker, but he basically confessed that he'd been angry not because of anything I did, but because he felt powerless, a pattern I never saw before, honestly. He apologized, awkwardly, in a we hug now, yeah? kind of way. I admitted I might have weaponized my pettiness a skosh too hard. We hugged it out, promptly insulted each other's hairlines, and I think that's as good as we get. Here's where things officially veer off into my life as a drama miniseries territory. Social services called to let my parents know the guardianship process for my nephew was moving ahead faster than expected. My sister essentially relinquished rights in a signed letter. I had no idea, but apparently the $27 was symbolic of cutting ties more officially. There's talk of my parents getting a respite worker to help with his care, and, get this, they asked me for advice on interviewing candidates. Like, you're the only one who listens to those boring boundaries podcasts, can you help us vet someone solid? My answer, hell yes. My nephew deserves the calm. Meanwhile, I've started seeing a therapist myself. Yes, the irony of needing therapy after all this was not lost on me. I realized every family call, even simple stuff, made me feel like I was standing on a trapdoor. But I'm learning boundaries aren't just things you demand once and then forget about, they're daily practice. Like brushing your teeth or refusing to loan your mom cash for rehab facilities, no matter how artfully she spins a sob story. And the best part, honestly, is the new routine my nephew and I have started. Every Saturday morning, we FaceTime over breakfast. Sometimes he just makes dinosaur sounds at me while I sip coffee and my friend's baby, now toddling, chases their dog in the background. Sometimes, we draw together. If you want proof that my stick dinosaurs look like worms, he's got the receipts. It's simple and strange and wonderful and nothing I ever pictured when this all started. As for my sister, she's 6 weeks into rehab. She sends my nephew a weekly letter, and sometimes, a little drawing or a Dino joke of the week. She's gotten shockingly invested in paleontology facts, for someone who used to roll her eyes at museum trips. I don't forgive easily, but I'm not holding my breath for her to come back the way she left. Maybe that's growth for both of us. I'm still at my friend's place, but actually looking for my own little apartment now, somewhere close enough to visit but far enough that unexpected family pop-ins aren't a looming threat. My friend's wife is lobbying for me to just take their guest room forever, but I think it might finally be time to try a space that's mine, where peace means peace because I built it, not because I'm hiding from chaos. If you told me a year ago that I'd be here, FaceTiming a happy, healing nephew, co-parenting brunch with a friend's baby, semi-amicably joking with my brother, and not terrified to open the mail, I'd have laughed. But here we are. Healing isn't linear, and neither is family, but sometimes, little victories look like dinosaur pajamas, coffee, and the realization that you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep everyone else warm. So, that's the latest. I'm not sure what the next update will bring, hopefully more boring, steady progress. And, for the hopeful among you, yes, I did buy my nephew a giant, plush T-Rex. As requested. His reaction? He can live with you till I visit for a sleepover. Update 6 here goes. Remember my new apartment search? Well, I found my own place, a sunny, quirky walk-up with mismatched tile, original hardwood, and exactly one rickety old ceiling fan that might be sentient. It took a while, the rental market is a cryptid, but I moved in midweek with the help of my nephew, proudly carrying pillows, my friend's family, potluck pizza on the floor, and exactly zero help from my family of origin, my choice, at first. I wanted to make this a milestone for myself, not an invitation for old resentments to haul boxes in behind me. But family, being what it is, refuses to stay neatly compartmentalized for long. I'd barely unpacked my socks before my mom called with a little situation. Turns out, my nephew's school flagged some behavioral regression, outbursts, big sad days, resistance to transitions. Nothing unexpected, transitions are hard, his therapist says, but it set the grandparent panic meter to DEFCON 2. The respite worker they just hired bailed after 3 days, citing family conflict. I can only imagine. And, for extra flavor, my sister's been sending weekly rehab letters to my folks too. Not all of them have been gracious. There was one that blamed my mom for her perfectionist mothering, another that accused my dad of never listening. It's hard stuff, but my parents are actually, for once, not just guilt-bombing me about it, they're actively in therapy too, which was my suggestion, small wins. Anyway, I told my mom to pause and call his therapist. I offered to come for a weekend, not as savior aunt but as emotional backup and to give the respite worker hunt another try. I'll admit, stepping foot in that house again, on purpose this time, was a little like being in one of those haunted house walkthroughs. It looks the same, but the air has changed. The difference was, my nephew rushed me at the door, wearing a paper crown. "Auntie, you're here. Can you stay for dinosaur soup?" Spoiler, dinosaur soup is chicken noodle with veggie dino pasta, and it tastes like hope and too much pepper. My brother showed, too, and he brought beer, and, weirdly, a new puppy, temporary foster for a friend, apparently, but I think we're all betting that dog has found his forever couch. There was a quiet, real family dinner, no drama. Just conversations, about summer camp options for my nephew, updates on his therapy, my apartment, whether I really need that many plants. Answer, yes. I felt, for the first time, like the family I wished for was trying, imperfectly, to show up. Now, here's where the crazy ramps up. That same night, after my nephew was asleep, my parents got a call from my sister, from rehab. She wanted to try a family healing session over speakerphone, with her counselor present. Not group therapy, exactly, more like an awkward conference call with feelings. She apologized, properly this time, to my parents for the abandonment, the cruel things she'd said, the financial mess. She didn't make excuses. She owned her actions. I could hear her voice waver, but she held it together. Then the surprising part, she apologized to me. She said, paraphrasing, that she'd never really known how to ask for help, or accept that sometimes she was wrong, and that she took her own shame out on me, because in her mind, I was the reminder of what putting boundaries first actually looks like. Again, I found myself with that weird, tangled feeling of pride and sadness and something like closure, for her, for us, for everything no one said before. And, this floored me, the counselor then gently asked my parents if they'd ever consider family counseling, as a unit, to build something new. My mom looked at me. My dad looked at the ceiling fan, as if it might intervene. My brother, of all people, said, why not? Worst case, we yell at professionals and see if it helps. The call ended there, but it's apparently scheduled for next week. The next morning, assured the kid was fine, my mom handed me a box. Your stuff, she said, old report cards, childhood drawings, crumpled short stories. At the very bottom, a half-ripped Polaroid of me, age 5, with my sister carrying me, both of us grinning like idiots in hand-drawn Dino t-shirts. There are no time machines, but, maybe, people can change if everyone's willing to do the work. Back at my apartment, I realized I had actual, grown-up choices now. My nephew video called me to show off his grand prize dinosaur for finishing a therapy chart, and my friend's baby, now babbling in full paragraphs, yelled "rawr" at the screen. Life is still loud, and weird, and far from perfect, but I don't flinch every time the phone buzzes anymore. So, what's next? I agreed, tentatively, to try a few of the upcoming family counseling sessions, but this time with my own conditions in place. If it ever gets toxic again, I'm out. My nephew and I are plotting his next aunt sleepover at my place, complete with Dino-shaped pancakes and, as he requested, no grown-ups but you. My friends and I are planning a joint summer picnic for fractured families who make it work, their words, and I'm stealing it. Oh, and the T-Rex plushie? Still living on my couch, waiting patiently. If you're still reading. I'm honestly not sure what I'm hoping for now, except maybe to keep choosing my own peace, my own boundaries, my own family, by birth and by choice. And, yeah, a few more dinosaur soup dinners along the way. I'll let you know how family counseling, and the puppy, turn out next. Here's to incremental healing, weird family, and rooms where you can breathe. Update 7. So, for everyone invested in the fate of the puppy, he's officially a permanent member of the family. My brother, after weeks of swearing he was just fostering, caved after my nephew started drawing pictures of the pup sleeping in his forever bed at my brother's house. Apparently, Puppy had the same nervous stomach at drop-offs as my nephew, trauma bonding in real time. He's now named Pickles. Pickles and my nephew have become an inseparable duo. Pickles sits under chairs at therapy, goes on Dino expeditions in the yard, and has become the reason my parents have reluctantly accepted dog hair as a permanent seasoning in their home. They grumbled, but secretly they're obsessed, and watching them act like textbook first-time dog owners is the exact serotonin boost I didn't know I needed. Now, the real meat, family counseling, part 1. I'll be honest, I went in with low expectations and a high level of purse snacks, for stress munching. The whole group, minus my sister, still in residential treatment and only allowed supervised family contact for now, made it to the therapist's bland office and awkwardly perched on various chairs and ottomans. The therapist started with ground rules: no shouting, no finger pointing, please refrain from assigning blame for world events to each other, and I watched my dad visibly restrain himself any time my mom got close to the just say sorry line she likes so much. But, here's the shocker, it wasn't a disaster. Maybe it was time, therapy, or just total exhaustion, but when my parents tried to say their piece, again, I saw something click for both of them. My mom talked about the guilt she carries, not over my sister's choices, but about making me the official responsible sibling for years. My dad, in his gruff way, admitted he never learned how to ask for help, and how he resented anyone else doing so. What came next floored me. My brother actually spoke up. Normally the king of silent grudge, he said it outright: I spent most of my life thinking Op had it easy, but maybe I was just mad everyone dumped on you so I wouldn't crack. I didn't know if I wanted to hug him or throw a pen at him, maybe both. The session ended with the therapist encouraging each of us to come up with one boundary and one hope. I said my boundary was no more surprise pop-ins or demands for money, and my hope was more dinosaur soup, less drama. We all snorted, but it felt good, for once, to be silly and real at the same time. Afterwards, my nephew, who'd been on a short walk with Pickles and the respite worker nearby, zoomed into the office and insisted on giving everyone a friendship bracelet he'd made. Mine is an epic, glittery green and yellow thing with the word RAR spelled out in letter beads. My brother's says chill. My mom's, brave. My dad's, for reasons no one will ever fully explain, robot grandpa. He cried a little when he got it, but covered it with a cough. We scheduled another session. This time, my sister will call in. I'm terrified, to be honest. I've forgiven some things but not others, and the idea of her talking to all of us at once dredges up every fight and, frankly, the worst of our family history. But here we are. I have veto power to leave or hang up if I need to, and everyone agreed without so much as a sigh. Now for the less dramatic but strangely devastating part, my first solo night in my new place. It was stormy, and I'd have given anything for a "hey, you wanna crash with us?" text from my friend. Instead, I unpacked, lined my windowsill with houseplants, and didn't freak out. The next morning, my nephew FaceTimed me, Pickles barking in the background, while he ate breakfast. He asked if I was lonely, then immediately offered to bring over his T-Rex plushie to protect me. I told him I'd keep it on standby for his next sleepover. And then, this actually made me laugh out loud. My mom texted me a screenshot of the Gentle Parenting Instagram page she'd started following, the one I'd recommended a year ago. One tiny step for the woman who spent my whole childhood impervious to therapy memes, one giant leap for generational growth. My friend and his wife brought their kids over for apartment warming pancakes. We sat, ate way too much, and toasted, with orange juice, to boring, which, after everything, feels like the most radical kind of joy. As for future plans, my nephew's summer camp welcomed him, and the director emailed my parents praising his empathy and unique dinosaur expertise. My brother's considering adopting Pickles, outright. My sister's halfway through her treatment and, for the first time, writing more letters to my nephew than to my parents, actual jokes enclosed, not just apologies. And well, I'm still growing roots, one weird, wobbly day at a time. Final thought, when the therapist asked, "What do you want your family to look like in a year?" I didn't have a perfect answer, but I kept picturing that dinner table, full of dino pasta, mutt fur, much too loud laughter, and, somehow, real peace. We're not fixed. But for the first time, I think we're at least not broken in the same old ways.